I've said, we are entering a chaotic world, and for those people who prepare, chaos can be a ladder. Thanks.
That's Harry Halpin.
There you go.
A stranger that I just, accidentally interviewed, or 5-minute little hopscotch thing going on. And, it changed my entire worldview. So I wanted to talk about the rabbit hole.
And we have a limited amount of time where the surveillance machine is not fully empowered yet, where we can build new technologies to prevent this rather dystopian future from happening. And I think we are accelerating towards that now. And in NIM and my work with Chelsea, and my work with our wonderful team and all of our coders, we don't know if anyone's really going to use it, but I think it's our last best attempt.
So perspective, I saw this guy, he was literally outside on the street holding his laptop, just couldn't put it down, obviously, I guess. He was trying to take a big picture with his sign, midnight, because that's who was running the hackathon. And I wanted to do the same thing. So I was like, oh crap, he's alone, I'm alone. I'm gonna ask him if he'll take my photo. I don't know if his photo is as bad as the one I've got, but I don't know. But I thought, this guy looks really interesting. I'm gonna ask if I can pull the camera out just in the street and just ask him some questions. And yeah, not to sound like a cheesy 80s movie, it rocked my world, man. It completely sent me on an 8-month research journey, rabbit hole, the depths of anti-surveillance, activism, AI safety course to see if AI could lead to human extinction. How bad could it be? Is there anything that we can do? So, who is this guy?
So I'm Harry Halpin. I'm the co-founder of NIM Technologies, and as we sit here at dusk and think about the future of the world, I think privacy is more and more important because we're facing like a very geopolitically unstable world, and we're going to see increases in surveillance, increases in asset seizures, and increased uses of AI, and without privacy, these technologies can be used against human freedom rather than for it.
Harry said these things 8 months ago, and he was literally predicting the future. He was completely correct with the things that happen to the world, starting with the country that I am from, Australia.
Hello, we start in Australia because in a few hours' time, the social media ban for children under the age of 16 will come into effect. The legislation's aimed at protecting children from cyberbullying, online predators, and harmful content. It's been a heated debate worldwide.
Access to social media for kids under 16 was not possible anymore. But a result of that meant that everyone else in the country had to verify their identity to prove they weren't 16. Meaning everyone in the country had an increased level of surveillance to all of these apps. Every single one of them now knows the exact identity of who is using it. It wasn't verified to the government, it was verified to each company. Scary. It's additionally scary because these companies, they keep getting hacked.
Telecommunications giant Optus was forced to admit the exposure of crucial identity details belonging to more than 1 million customers.
The concern is the frequency at which I'm losing data at this point. We are being just thrown to the wolves. I don't want to be giving it out anymore.
So what did we do? We just basically downloaded VPNs and then we got around it, obviously. VPN usage skyrocketed.
Emily, the e-safety commissioner says she doesn't have the powers to enforce this ban.
eSafety's own early research into the ban has found so far 70% of children still have access to at least one of their social media accounts. Investigations, though, they are underway into multiple platforms for potential non-compliance, but no fines have been issued.
The UK then brought in the same rule as Australia and went a little bit further.
1 month ago, the UK saw the biggest change to its online safety laws since the creation of the internet.
With votes to bar VPNs, make them illegal, literally making the ability to be anonymous online illegal. The government statement on what this means and what's going to happen is due literally this month. It could be done by the time I edit and post this video. In short, the surveillance increased, people found the workaround, so they increased the surveillance and the restrictions. It's a very brutal cycle that could technically just continue. So why is this so bad? That was kind of my follow-up question to Harry. Like, if governments and companies have this ID and they can link that to your online activity, what does it matter? And he had a really good answer.
I mean, you know, if you've ever like traveled to a different country and then your bank account stops working, imagine if that happened in your own country. Imagine that you were put on a list of undesirables for your political beliefs or your, I don't know, your way of life, and you just woke up one day you couldn't access your bank account. What would you do? Most people would have no options. And, you know, with the fact, you know, if all of the world's financial rails goes on public ledgers, many of which are going to be centralized, then we obviously need decentralized and privacy-enhanced alternatives to preserve our financial freedom. And without financial freedom, it's going to be very hard to survive.
If government overreach reaches a certain point and the general consensus is that you have an opinion that isn't agreed upon, they could literally just start shutting off your internet, shut down your bank accounts. They could shut down heaps of different stuff. And while it sounds insane, you go, okay, well, I'm not doing anything weird. Donald Trump very recently just said that if you are anti-tech, anti-AI, that would be a form of extremism. Just for being against big tech, who have been abusing, I don't know, data, heaps of stuff for profit for a really long time. If you have that opinion, the President of America has come out and said it's a form of extremism. You connect these dots and the picture looks really grim very quickly. It's important to be able to express your opinions, and sharing them is what makes us human. It's how we find progress. And that's where Harry's story comes in. He cares for a very good reason. I mean, first of all, he cared because he has a heart. He's a human, but he has been... I'll let him tell his own story.
Yeah, so, you know, it was very funny being here and seeing, what was it, MI5, whatever, give a talk pro-privacy. I did my PhD in the UK, University of Edinburgh. You know, we still work at the University of Edinburgh and IOHK, or IOG now, with Aggelos KIS. But when I was a grad student at University of Edinburgh, I was targeted by the Met due to my climate change activism. And they kicked me out of the UK, they removed my visa, and put me on a blacklist for about 10 years. So I had to take aggressive legal action against them. I was right. The Met Police has admitted that they've done wrong. I just came in to London without any problems yesterday. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, I do think climate change is a big deal, and I don't think I should have been persecuted for my beliefs around climate change. We can have reasonable disagreements about it. I tend to be a kind of science-backed kind of guy, but, you know, I think I'm right, and the Met, who believed that all people that were worried about climate change were extremists, were wrong back in 2008. And I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone else. So I don't really care what side of the political spectrum you're on. You know, you don't want to have your freedom taken away. And, you know,
I think that's really important. It doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you're on. Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with. It's about having that opinion is allowed. It's not just allowed, it's needed. But at this point is when I realized Harry was probably someone, I don't know, who is this guy that I'm talking to? When I got home, I obviously searched him straight away. That's where this rabbit hole gets, he kind of undersells, in my opinion, the impact that he's had and how heavy and bad that story was that impacted him, the blacklist.
Mark Stone was actually discovered to not be Mark Stone. He was discovered to be Mark Kennedy, too lazy to change his first name. Mark Kennedy ended up getting outed by a small group of sleuthing activists as an undercover officer working for the British state. In 2003, Kennedy had been sent undercover by an elite unit in London's Metropolitan Police Service to gather intelligence on activists like Wilson. He spent 7 years living a double life. He was a fearless organizer who had a shadowy backstory as a cocaine runner, but he was also a cop with a family in Ireland.
The most infamous spy cop in British history. Kennedy spied on Harry personally, including traveling with his activist group to the Copenhagen Climate Summit in 2009. That list that he was put on was the domestic extremism list. Not light. It's a pretty heavy thing for a grad student for climate activism. And as we just heard when I met him, well, they admitted that they were wrong. This became one piece of a massive unraveling to an inquiry that is still going on today, examining undercover units from 1968.
It was an undercover unit of shadowy practices born out of protests against the Vietnam War. While left-wing protesters of the 60s and 70s were marching through London, how could they know that a new police operation, the Special Demonstration Squad or SDS, was marching alongside them, spying on activists like Tariq Ali?
The Met also said that this should have been shut down decades ago and formally apologised.
The vast majority of organisations that were infiltrated posed no threat to the state, and yet officers spent years making friends and allies.
So I asked Harry a very, obvious question that you'd have an answer after hearing a story like that. Do you think that people shouldn't have their opinions muzzled? Should they be silenced? And his response was, well...
Yeah, I'm an American, so I tend to believe in freedom of speech. So I think that the more voices we have, even if they disagree and they dissent from each other, the better. And I think blockchain technology, mixed nets, we're like an anonymizing network that we are building here at NIM, which will work with Midnight, which lets us kind of allow even vast surveillance agencies not to see what people are doing on the internet. I think that technology is going to be increasingly important to preserve, what ultimately I think is our democratic freedoms and an increasingly authoritarian environment. And I think on that level, myself and the British state can agree.
One of the coolest guys I've ever met, I think. He's completely inspired me to think about things differently. Because after digging into his story, well, I kept digging. I kept researching. Who is this guy? What is his project NIM, a mixnet? I didn't know what a mixnet was. To be fair, I used VPNs a bit, probably not enough. My digging led to a paper that Harry wrote as a tribute to a late philosopher, someone that mentored him, Bernard Stiegler. In Harry's words, the introduction to his paper here, it's not every day that the world loses a philosopher at precisely the moment he is needed the most. Now, I think I'd probably need to do a whole series on Stiegler and his role in the world and thinking about tech. The really short version, he robbed multiple banks, ended up in prison, read a whole bunch of books, rewired his whole brain about everything, and became, well, one of the most prolific philosophers, technologists the world has ever seen. It led me to find what has been a defining philosophy for me to think about technology and how it can positively impact the world when it feels like it has been impacting the world negatively a lot. Pharmakon. The philosophy talks about it being the poison and the cure. Technology is the poison and the cure. This philosophy, the word, comes from Old Greek. It goes all the way back to Plato. Plato spoke about it in writing, how writing could be both a poison and a cure. The king said that it would create forgetfulness, because if you wrote it down, you wouldn't have to think about remembering it as much. And whilst technically true, it obviously had all of the other benefits of writing. Passing things down, remembering more. This dance between both is something that humanity has taken for all of history. The printing press in the 1500s, the church's index of forgotten books. It led to the Reformation, but it also enabled mass literacy, access to knowledge, reading, writing. The atom led to both the power plant, but also the atomic bomb. And the internet in 1996, Barlow, the declaration of cyberspace. This philosophy, I feel, is a positive accelerant to what could be seen as a negative feeling with AI right now. Whilst the technology can be uprooting the world and making it a bad place, mass surveillance systems, government overreach, the things that could happen from that in terms of limiting our freedoms to access to money, private companies having that power, not just governments. On the flip side, it can do the complete opposite. It could advance abilities to cure cancer. We could use it for defense technology, I'm not talking force shields, but decentralization of assets where no central person has control, or cures for biological weapons that aren't even made yet. And that leads me to possibly the most recent publication or similar of Harry's. He wrote a return serve to Palantir, an anti-Palantir manifesto. And there's many great points in this, but the one that resonated for me relates to the work that Harry's doing now and the work that I hope to try to do more of. We should fight for the world we want and build the tools needed for future generations. Pacifism would be suicidal in this period of global turbulence and resource wars. But the real power lies in technology. Programmers should be creating technologies to live a free life and prosper in a hostile society of surveillance and control. Decentralization is the only way these technologies will survive against the inevitable repression. Harry is now working on a project called NIM. It's a mixnet. And a mixnet, well, it's essentially a level up from a VPN. And if the UK does pass bans on VPNs, a mixnet would enable, well, the government can't ban it. I think explaining the tech on that one would be another whole video, but it is pretty cutting edge. And ending on the positive outlook of where the tech could go. What if all of this technology actually enabled the good things? What if we all built things that put humanity first? It was good for the world, healthy, it didn't destroy things. It allowed us to live better lives. The cure turned into better things. That to me is an exciting future. Tech that can help the world. It's tech that can help the world, man. This is the stuff we should be caring about. The poison and the cure. Technology is the poison and the cure. I wonder if the light will be good enough. Pharmakon.
We have a limited amount of time where the surveillance machine is not fully empowered yet, where we can build new technologies to prevent this rather dystopian future from happening.